It has been a long, hard fight, but your group is victorious. The evil Xeraxior and his demon cult lay dead or dying at the base of the grand demonic statue. The cold, damp dungeon is now eerily quiet as the smell of fresh blood fills the room in the aftermath of your party's battle. The demonic statue looms imposing in the room, but your attention is drawn to its eyes, which glint in the light of the wizard's magical light spell. The eyes are a pair of finely cut rubies bigger than the barbarian's fists. It would be difficult, but the rogue believes that he can scale the statue and remove the eyes. Hopefully there's enough time to do so before the ruins collapse. Alright, hi guys, Brian here, and as you might have guessed, I am taking a look at the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition DMG, Dungeon Master's Guide. And if you're aware, this book actually has been out, I think, since last year. It came out like late last year. It came out a while ago. And, well, let's go ahead and get into it. Hey, look, there's a reflection of the light. Isn't it pretty? It's like the sun. Worship the sun. No, anyway. The cover is pretty cool. It's an interesting piece of artwork. Like I said in the other reviews, I generally prefer my D&D books to be a rather plain cover and not busy. This is a bit busier than I like, but hey, for a piece of artwork, a necromancer raising a dead warrior of some sort is kind of a cool cover. Side is nice and plain. I like that. Back, I still kind of dig the two-tone-ness of this. Oh, and you might have noticed that I'm giving a green screen a shot, so if things look wonky, chalk it up to learning experience, I guess. I'm trying my best on it, giving it a shot. Let me know what you guys think of it. I'm going to be trying it out for a few videos, I think, see how it goes. So let me know. I am actually curious what you guys think of the green screen. So, on the inside of the book is... Well, the DMG is always basically the book that you need kind of the least. It tells you kind of how to DM, but no one really needs to tell you how to DM other than, you know, building encounters. But this DMG does attempt to give you the basis on how to actually build a world, and it actually does have some very good advice. I cannot for the life of me figure out why every time I pick this book up to read through it, my brain just said, I don't want to read this again. When the majority of this was actually pretty new information and pretty useful information. Like, it goes through suggestions about how to build a plot, how to set up your stage, how to just set up a good game. It's got a lot of good information in it, and I have no idea why I just completely wasn't enthused with it. So for my like semi-professional opinion on it, I say this is a good book to have. I just don't know why I would say to myself that I don't necessarily need to read through it. But it's got, well, hold on, let's jump through here. Taking a quick look at the words that you probably can't read, but we have several parts. So part 1 consists of chapter 1 and 2, which chapter 1 is creating a world of your own, and chapter 2 is creating a multiverse of your own. So it's very much helping you build your setting, and that's really good information. They actually have some cool charts in here about these settings. Like if you want to design randomly generated towns, that chart's in here, and it's pretty awesome. Actually, there's a lot of random charts in this that are actually kind of awesome. I actually am planning on taking at some point the charts and like writing them down in a Word document and printing them out and putting them on my DM screen, because those charts are just good to have, and on a DM screen it's always awesome. I always customize my own DM screens with the charts and information that I need at hand, and these are just good charts to have in this book. Part 2 consists of more rules stuff, like how you create adventures, tips for creating non-player characters, tips for generating your environments, your adventure environments, which is actually the name of the chapter 5. Chapter 6 is between adventures, and 7 is treasure. Just to be thorough, I suppose I should tell you that chapter 3 is creating adventures, chapter 4 is creating non-player characters. So, for Chapter 6, Between Adventures, the book really... This edition of D&D goes back to the really dumb concept that I have never seen used, where you have one adventure and then your character spends 6 months not doing anything, and then you come back to another adventure. I have never played in a game like that, never heard of a game like that. Every game I've ever played is just like one big grand adventure that continuously rolls on like a narrative. So you never have the months of downtime that the game kind of assumes you have. 3rd edition did this, 4th edition kind of ignored it, 5th edition, well, the 4th edition kind of made mention of it, but didn't really like build it as part of the mechanics. 5th edition, unfortunately, builds it as part of the mechanics again, because it's like, here's where you would build your own equipment, here's where you do side jobs, and basically anything that is not directly like combat related, they say, hey, here's where you do that, is in between adventures. Chapter 7, Treasure, is all about how much treasure a party should get, when you should divvy it out, how much a single monster should get, how much a dungeon should have, and also magic items and good stuff like that. Part 3 of the book consists of Chapter 8, which is Running the Game, which has some optional ruleses. It's my ruleses! Optional rules, how you use the rules, table rules. It's also got stuff like siege equipment, diseases, poisons, traps. Right? No, traps I think are in adventure environments. I think? Yes, they are. Anyway, and then Chapter 9 is called the Dungeon Master's Workshop, which contains information about creating your own stuff, like creating monsters, spells, and magic items. And then Appendix A is another random chart assortment that allows you to actually build a random dungeon, which is kind of interesting, actually. Appendix B is Monster List. Monster List actually by challenge rating, and I don't for the life of me know why they didn't include that in the monster manual, because that is an extremely useful thing to have. Appendix C has some maps that are available for you to borrow, and Appendix D is about books that would be inspirational for a dungeon master. So let's just take some cool flips through here. I again apologize if the green screen is going to show up on the pages as I'm flipping them. I'm not quite sure how I could fix that at the moment because my lighting isn't perfect. But hey, I shouldn't be complaining about my setup. I apologize. I'm going to continue on, and that guy looks really awesome. In fact, I'm going to highlight him because this guy looks really, really awesome. It doesn't hurt the fact that my color scheme that I generally tend to go to is white, red, or red, white, and gold. And that's what he is. And I really like this guy. Anyway, lots of really awesome art in this book. This, like, basically every single magic item is detailed. And I love that they go through, like, how to build your multiverse, how to build your deities, how to map your cities, and they also, of course, always go into the top-down. They try to help you figure out if you want to go from a top-down world design or a bottom-up design. Basically, a top-down design is you build a map, and then you go in and build a country, and then you go in and build a city. Whereas bottom-up is the opposite way around, where you build a city, then you build a country, then you build a map. So I generally prefer to go top-down because I apparently like drawing maps better than I like drawing cities. So I tend to do that. Anyway, they give you good advice for building your cities, like even going into the atmosphere of like how you describe things in order to build the right atmosphere for the city. Like if you have a city that you want to be grim, dark, and gothic, here's a good way to do it. Forms of government. It's just lots of pretty cool information. I don't know why I keep flipping to this page, because that horse is there. Now we're in information about the setting or pacing of the plot again, which, because we've already been here. Organizations they give you about. Playstyle. They break down the playstyles of where you can have hack and slash, which is just busting in the door, fighting the monsters, and who cares about what your characters are thinking. Or you can go with the who cares about combat, I have a story that I want to tell them, but your players are interesting, and then there's, of course, the balance in between that. Tiers of play, back to creating the multiverse, and this is kind of the stuff that always, like, intrigues me. Like, my brain constantly, like, brainstorms the setting in the high scale, like how do the gods interact with the setting, how did the what defines the multiverse and all that fun stuff. So I always get a kick out of this stuff. Yeah, for some reason in this book when I was reading it, I just couldn't stop to actually read it. I don't know why though. But they go through the various planes of creation, or whatever. Elemental planes, that's the word I was looking for. Elemental planes. And that's actually a cool image of a map, but hey. We're into some more of the alignment-based planes, which I'm actually not a huge fan of, but I can understand. And now we're looking at the beginning of part 2 with a really awesome picture of the Tarrasque. And this actually might be my favorite picture of the Tarrasque, now that I think about it, because that looks badass. And this little wizard guy up here looks awesome firing, and I don't know how well you guys can see it, and I can't really pull it in closer. But that's a really awesome picture. This is a really odd picture of a house with chicken legs. Well, okay then. More advice about how you build an adventure, like make sure you have something for all your players and what your players want. They even have suggestions about the goals for the various settings that your dungeon can be in, or your adventure can take place in. They just have lots of cool, like, little charts like this that are serve as inspiration, or if you want, randomized, because this is just a D12 chart, so they just roll a D12, and hey, that's what you can go with, or you can just look at it for inspiration. That's another cool picture. Lots of cool pictures in this book. Very good artwork in 5th edition. I'm really liking that. Information on creating NPCs. Another horrible picture of a gnome. They again pulled like the death domain out of the player's handbook and some paladin oathbreaker class or whatever this is. No, the specialty or whatever it is. So they pulled some player options out of the player's handbook again, like they did in 4th edition. Not in love with that, but I can kind of understand where they're coming from. Like, that's not something you want to really encourage your players to do, because as a guy who's encountered numerous games where people want to be assholes, if you kind of hide this information a bit, it makes it less likely that they're going to say, hey, I want to create a Death Domain Death Lord Paladin. Yeah, that's going to work well in your city, in your campaign where you're trying to save it from the demonic hordes. But anyway, talk about dungeon hazards, like traps and whatnot, random settlements again, counters at sea, various traps, downtime adventures again, between adventures of the chapter that we're in the moment. And we get to the treasure hoards now, which include all the really awesome artwork for the magical equipment. And that's cool. Oh, that's green. You're probably not going to see it. So trust me, that kind of is a greenish blue color. And hey, look, more green. So I think I might have found a downfall of having the green screen. Or at least for this case. But basically the art in this book is really awesome. Have I mentioned that? I like the art. A big chunk of this book is actually the magic items, so I'm going to be flipping through this. Really cool that they have so many of the magic items portrayed. And I just rather like the book. It's got a lot of good information and a lot of good random charts and a lot of good, like, one of the things I love that they've done in this book is that they have given you a way to randomly generate where the origin of your item that you're giving out, and just doing that yields some really interesting results. Like, I played around with that in a previous game, and like, I generated some magic items, like a healing potion, that I decided, let's test this out and let's give it a shot and see what this comes up with for its random history. And it turned out to be like this really weird kind of origin. And I'm like, I'm not gonna fudge this and make it more mundane. I'm gonna go with the random weirdness that I got. And it turned out to be much more interesting because I had to narratively create why such an oddity thing exists, and it made some more history for my world. And I'm like, that's cool, I like that. So having the random generation for the background was really interesting. I quite like that. In fact, that's currently on my current version of the of my DM screen, which I need to adjust now that I have the DMG in my hand. Information on artifacts. I love the Book of Exalted Deeds. It just looks cool to me. Some more. Oh, they also go into like some cool other rewards. Like you can give letters of recommendations to your players for having done something, and that gives them a bit of air of authority, which I actually find to be a really good idea. And other rewards that you can give your players, like a charm, like a magical a boost. Like you can give them a power that they can use every once in a while, or until it runs out. And rewards like that is actually a really interesting thing. So that part was cool for me to read. And then there's epic boons as well. They give you at 20th level, which have a similar thing. And that brings us into part 3, mastering the rules. Hey, that guy is green. I think I cut that. But it gives you advice on how to do difficulty classes, how to handle disadvantage and advantage, proficiency bonuses, just general guidelines on how to actually run the rules. And it's pretty good information. Information on how to use maths and miniatures, which every game I've ever played in uses miniatures because they're just really useful to have. Oh, good information about chases. Well, though I kind of disagree with their information about chases. Or I think I'm going to disregard this information that they do on chases, where it's basically more along the lines of you can take dash actions or something like that. I think I'm still going to run chases as a 4th edition skill challenge, because I think that makes it more narratively interesting than what they introduce here. Which is basically just continue moving and try stuff. Information on siege equipment, and not too much else. A couple other interesting optional rules, like here's poisons, and if you want, you can introduce madness effects, and cool stuff like that. And that brings us into part 3, right? No. That brings us into chapter 9, the DM workshop, where you build stuff, like a nobility, like you could have honor and sanity as new ability scores, and a cool looking Japanese-ish character to represent nobility. And that's cool. They show you how you can build like that. You can do speed, just a whole bunch of optional rules. Well, not optional rules, but a whole bunch of like subtle optional rules, I suppose would be the best way to put it. Like how fast you can recover, adjusting the time it takes for a short rest or a long rest, creating monster stats. It's just, this book has some good information in it. If you're a DM, I suppose the big question is, if you've already DM'd, do you need this book? And I would say you can get by without it, but there is good information to be had in this book. Pretty much, I would assume pretty much any DM is going to buy the book regardless of whether or not I say that they should or not, because I would. Now we're currently in the random dungeons, so that's kind of cool. So basically, that's the major part of the book. The question, I suppose, would be asked of, should somebody get this book? If they're a DM, pretty much I would assume they're going to get the book regardless, because I would, and obviously did. It's not exclusively required, but it's got useful information in it, and I love the number of random charts in here, and it's just got good information on it that's useful to have, even if for whatever reason I just couldn't get myself to actually read through it as clearly as I wanted, or quickly as I wanted. So to myself, I would say, Brian, pick it up and force your way through it, and then probably go through it again a second time afterwards. But for everyone else, I'd say, yeah, pretty much go ahead and take a look at it. For players, I would say this isn't necessary, because players don't need the DMG. They don't need to look at the magic items unless the DM is giving them to them, in which case the DM should be giving them the stats for it as well, and all that information. So players would actually need very little out of this book. So it's primarily for DMs. and has good information for DMs. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, it has the 4th edition building encounters based on experience budget rules in here. And they, of course, they for some reason decide to make it more complicated than they did in 4th edition. But I'm going to basically ignore parts of that and just wing it on my own, because if I make things too difficult, I can always scale them back as I need to in game. And I don't really care about trying to do it as complicated as they want me to do it. So hey, that's cool. I'm glad to have those rules back. But that's basically my quick thoughts on the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's been out for, unfortunately, a little while, actually. I'm curious to know what you guys think of it. Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know what you guys think of 5th edition in general. I know I'm still liking it, even if I haven't been able to play it as often as I'd like. It's still actually probably my favorite edition of D&D, but again, I need to play it more than I have been. So I'm quite liking it. I'm curious to know what you guys are thinking about it. So let me know. Until next time, guys, this is Brian, and saying, beam me up, Scotty. Bye.